Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the updates 1.98 dev server and it's time to have a look at a Challenger 2. This is a new Challenger 2, it's the Challenger 2 2F and it will now reside at the top of the British tree. Right here, right next to its brother, the normal Challenger 2. And this one is a slightly upgraded version, mainly down to one of its modifications. It gets a Dorchester 2F armor kit, just like how the Challenger 2 gets a Dorchester 2E armor kit, and you can see that it changes its camouflage a little bit. Now the reason I'm using the late bicolor is just to show you the difference between the two camouflages, but understand that this is something which is pretty interesting. It pretty much covers the whole of the turret. It also adds a little bit of additions on top, such as this little area here, and also a little bit more armor on the front, which is also nice to see. But generally what you'll find is it'll look like this, so it'll look very much battle ready. And we did test this new kind of camouflage right now, at least on the first dev server. We tested it against thermals because we thought maybe it would be useful against thermals, and what we found was no. No, it isn't. It is completely useless against thermals, so pretty much what it's there for is it gives you a little bit more when it comes to, I suppose, just overall camouflage, depending on the map that you're on, but it doesn't do too much to any of the systems that people use. So what we're pretty much getting here is another Challenger with some cool bells and whistles. The fact is, it still has the 120mm L30A1. Sporting from the L30A1, it has the L23A1 as a stock shell, a HESH in the form of the L31A7, and the upgraded shell, rank 4, being the L26, 471, 408, 272 respectively, with 1550 meters per second in muzzle velocity. Also gets a smoke. And on top of this as well, it gets access to smoke grenades, ESS, a laser rangefinder, obviously the Dorchester 2F upgrade, the artillery support, and thermals as well. I feel like the thermals on this vehicle may be broken though. I can only get them to work on the gunner's sight, and there is no way that this thing doesn't have commander's thermals, so that is something to think about. Talking about the gun as well, because it's a 4-man crew, it's still manually loaded, and if you want to have a look at the armor, it's pretty much exactly the same armor that you find on the other Challenger 2. It has obviously nearer blocks on the front of it, which block 30 for kinetic and 400, and then near the back it has slightly worse ones in the form of Romor A, and these are 30 and 300, and then it just has this random ERA block here, but the rest is Romor A as well on the sides of the turret. The composite armor, of course, is 22, 30, 70 on the side, 50, 50, 400, 60, 110 on the front, and around the breech only 200 as usual. On the hull, you're looking at 50, 280, so nothing to write home about, and you're also getting the Slat Armor, which is actually pretty cool. So this will obviously help protect against stuff like heat, stuff like HESH. Maybe it'll do something, maybe it'll go straight through, we'll have to see. But the main thing to understand is there's Slat Armor all over this thing, out on the back and out and around, and it isn't connected to the main body, so it should actually act as kind of spaced armor. So setting off shells and then shells getting stuck between this with very, very low penetration. The other thing to also mention is because of the way that they've remodeled fuel tanks, you should be able to ignite these and actually not die from them, but don't take my word for it. Make sure to check that when it comes to the vehicle. Now, another thing to also note is from a stock Challenger 2, this is 62.5, this is up to 63.6, so it adds another ton when it comes to its overall weight, and also the engine itself is still the CV126A, 1217 horsepower at 2300 RPM. There's also a radiator and the David Brown TN54E automatic transmission, which has 6 gears going forward and 2 gears going back at a very, very good canter of 37 kilometers an hour backwards, but not the best at 59 kilometers an hour going forwards. The Challenger has an always, or has never really been the fastest tank in the game, but it's still okay. Its maneuverability is not too bad. The other thing to note is as well is for some reason this guy right here, the loader, is still above. He is not actually really in his position. He's really high up for some reason. And this was something the commander had a problem with. He was peeping out of the optics too much when it came to the Challenger. But the Challenger 2 seems to have the other dude who is having issues. So the loader technically is sat above the armor right now, which seems very odd to me. But it does have a first stage ammo stowage of 4 pieces right here, and also it is still 2-piece ammunition with the charges next to the loader, and also, you know, the actual heads over here. The gun breech shows that this thing has a 2-plane stabilizer, obviously, and also 26.1 seconds turret rotation speed and 10 degrees worth of gun depression, which is pretty standard when it comes to all things considered. So what we're looking at here is a semi-beefier Challenger, but for me, it's more about the possibilities of this machine going forward when it comes to mechanics which could be added to it. Right now, in its current state, at least on the dev server, it's just another Challenger 2. There is really nothing which sets it apart from the slight increase of armor, which isn't going to help against the majority of machines that it faces. So it really is the planning ahead part that we have to look forward to. It's also another 10.3 MBT, meaning that Britain once again gets another addition to its top tier. And I think British top tier has been doing pretty well recently, you know, and has a bunch of new vehicles to it, the Vickers, the Roycat, which is around the place. Then, of course, the addition of the Challenger 2, this Challenger 2, and then the Dorchester pack for the other Challenger 2 too. So, yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff going on. The only issue they have really is, well, the Striker. Also, the Apache was added to them as well, and the Scimitar, which gives itself some bullpups, so maybe that'll be used in the future. But overall, yeah, we're just looking at another vehicle which looks pretty fun to use, which is very similar to the other Challenger 2 that we have, apart from it looks a little bit cooler. So, as I said, Commander thermals don't seem to be working. The normal thermals, though, working like a charm, able to absolutely annihilate pretty much anything that it finds, and as we do in the Challenger, we start walking forward in a very aggressive, very, very interesting way. The other thing is the driver's port. The driver's port is behind the tank. Now remember, this is a bug, so just I'm sure this will be changed. And also you can go under the ground. So that is an unfortunate thing for this Challenger 2. But it is something which I kind of find hilarious. It looks like I'm in like a third-person view behind the Challenger 2, but it kind of is how it is. Another thing to also talk about this machine, since it is so modern, it does leave it up to a bunch of interesting ideas. Like, what if this is the first machine in the game which has access to active protection systems, like APS? Now, obviously, we have no real knowledge if that is the case, but it has been an issue in the past where whenever APSs have been brought up, they have pretty much been dismissed because of the vehicles we have in game not being able to have them. This one definitely can. There is absolutely no question about it. This thing could definitely house some form of APS system. So that's what I mean. It might be something which is looking to the future. It also might be something that is heavily modified before either a second dev server or before the live server, because as I said, when it comes to the vehicle, you would think that the netting, or you would think that something like that would have some sort of effect on some sort of signature. Otherwise, what would really be the reason for it, unless they wanted to make it look as hardy as possible, which, at least in my opinion, is generally not a great idea to do. But it just gives another option to British top tier players. It gives another option to be able to play top tier if you have everything spaded. It also makes it so getting into top tier is a little bit easier for the average person who wants to play Britain, because now with the addition of this, it reduces the research cost of stuff such as the Challenger 2. And what I mean by that is its modification costs, not its overall costs. And because of that, Well, it means that you can get it and be able to spade it quicker, and you won't have as many issues at a stock grind, which you would have with a bunch of other machines. Britain Top Tier has got a lot of love over the last year or so. The Phantom, remember when the Hunter F6 came out? The Challenger 2, both, or, all of the Challengers which are pretty much in the game. The Stormer, even though not many people want to talk about it. The Apache. There's as I said, the Roycat and the Vickers, and this is kind of just like a nice cherry on top, which gives the idea of there might be a lot more planned, and also there might be some really cool systems which are added to the game. I'm just really hoping that we see some soon, just to kind of understand what is going to go on going forward. Otherwise, this is just really another Challenger with a bunch of random stuff on it, which doesn't contribute too much to the game. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Eugene's Terry, Daniel Stanton, Blackie, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, B. Young, Chris Giltnane, Trigger Hippie, Ambrosius McClellan, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.